Good afternoon, Namibia and the rest of the world, and welcome to once again another session here at the Government Information Center. I am your host for the afternoon, and my name is Ashianua Desire Kahia, and today we are taking a look at public servants' code of conduct, leave and induction processes in perspective. In the studio this afternoon, I do have panelists from the Office of the Prime Minister who will be helping us to divulge these particular elements within the employment sphere of government. We will be having our COVID update a little bit later on in the show, and that will be the update for the 26th of April 2022. Coming back to our topic for the afternoon, I would like to welcome Ms. Tekla Yarman, and she is the Deputy Director for Integrity in the Office of the Prime Minister. Good afternoon, ma'am, and thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon, Desire.
We also have Mr. Chris Shikuthere, and he is the Deputy Director for Conditions of Employment in the Office of the Prime Minister. Thank you for being with us, sir.
Good afternoon, Desire, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Very good. Kicking it off, simple. What is a code of conduct in the workplace and why is it important? Ms. Yarman, maybe you can assist us with that one.
Thank you, Desire. The Code of Conduct is a legal framework that sets out the behavior and actions of staff members. It also sets out specific obligations from the employer and also from the staff members. The Code of Conduct is telling staff members how to act. It also strengthens the organizational culture of integrity, trust, and the highest standard of ethics. The Public Service Code of Conduct was reviewed in 2019 because we realized the need that the Code of Conduct need to include issues of good governance, integrity, and then also we realized that it was outdated in supporting the drive of the public service to promote ethics and integrity. During that stage, we added a new paragraph to sensitize staff members on the consequences of non-compliance. Also, a paragraph was added to define a number of concepts that emphasize key principles that underpin ethics and integrity. At that stage, we also added the responsibility to accounting officers to include the appointment of integrity committees.
Okay. Integrity committees, that's what you finished off with now with regards to code of conduct. Mr. Shikuthere, what is an integrity committee and how and when do they actually carry out their functions? What do their roles entail?
Thank you, Desire. An integrity committee is a group of staff members that are identified within a ministry by the executive director or the accounting officer of, in the case of regional councils, and they are designated to carry out certain functions that are spelled out within the code of conduct that my colleague has just alluded to. But among the things that they are doing, they are simply the eyes and the ears of the executive director and the accounting officer in terms of assessing whether staff members in the ministry are complying to the code of conduct. They are also helping the executive director to make assessments in terms of internal controls, whether all the internal controls are in place in order to ensure that there are no shortcomings that would, in the end, entice staff members to behave themselves in an unbecoming manner. They help the executive director also to report on issues that relate to unethical behavior. We know that there are normal instruments, for example, when there is a particular misconduct in a ministry, which is dealt with in terms of the formal process of in terms of our disciplinary procedures. But there are instances where sometimes things are happening in the ministry, but people also see what is happening, but there is that lack of courage to bring some of these behaviors, some of this unbecoming conduct to the attention of the executive director. So that is basically the role of the integrity committees that we have established, and we need to point out these are people that are full-time employed. They have their normal duties that they are carrying out.
Okay.
So the designation that we are referring to, it's an added function
Okay.
that is given to them in order to help the executive directors to carry out those functions that are assigned to them. I think my colleague can probably give more insight into the operations and the work of the
Okay.
integrity committees.
Okay, and while Ms. Yarman, while you add on to that particular answer, maybe you can also just give us a few highlights on what we could use or have examples of as unethical behavior in the workplace. And also, Mr. Shikuthere mentioned that it is the eyes and ears of the accounting officers and so forth. But can it work, or is it allowed to work vice versa?
The integrity committees were nominated and appointed by the accounting officer. So they are reporting on a quarterly basis to the accounting officers on any issues of ethics and integrity. And in fact, they are also reporting on the identification of cases of unethical behavior across the OMA. It is then up to the accounting officer to report these cases further or do a proper internal investigation of such cases. The integrity committees are established not only in offices, ministries and agencies, but they are also operational in the regional councils across the public service. These integrity committees have embedded the 10 principles that is under the Namibian Public Service Act, because you have mentioned ethical behavior, and we as integrity committee members, we also believe that ethical behavior is guided by moral values and principles, and that's in fact the reason why the 10 principles of the Namibian Public Service Charter was incorporated not only in the Code of Conduct but also in the day-to-day operations of integrity committee members. Just to mention a few of these principles, it's transparency, information, carrying out of duties fairly and unbiased to all, irrespective of gender, race, religion, political affiliation, disability or social status. Remember that all public servants are obligated to conduct their daily operations and deliver services to the public unbiased and solely on merit.
Okay. We asked for simple examples of unethical behavior. What would those include?
Unethical behavior would be regularly coming late to work, absenteeism, it would be disclosing information of confidential information, not delivering a best value for service as stipulated in the 10 principles, that public servants are really reluctant in performing their day-to-day activities and delivering the best possible service to the public.
Okay. In the case, for example, where you have a public servant who is engaging, for the lack of a better word, we would say engaging in unethical behavior as per some of the examples that you gave us. For example, not delivering valuable service. What happens then if you have this particular person who is engaging in this behavior, but not necessarily by their own cause? What if it's the case of it's a supervisor that is causing this public servant to behave unethically, if we can call that? Who then becomes the referee to the referee?
I think what you are referring to is a situation where a staff member receives an instruction from a supervisor to perform specific activities that could be unethical. And in cases like that, it is best for any employee to speak up. Staff members need to speak up and report that my supervisor requested me to act unethically. And I think it's also a case of most of the time we are aware what is ethical and what is not unethical. We are aware of the rules, we know the rules, yet we make a decision not to apply them appropriately. Okay. So if there's something happening, whether it's from your supervisor or just within your office, ministry or agency, the best and the first thing to do is to report it, and then proper investigation can be done to see how that case should be taken further.
Okay. So basically the staff has, I don't know, the right to then go above their supervisor or deviate from approaching the integrity committee with regards to some of these issues. Because sometimes they're not necessarily being asked to perform something unethical. They are being asked to perform the normal duties and so on, but they cannot deliver properly due to some or the lack of something that their supervisor is supposed to provide them, or, you know, they are being constrained in the performing of their duties by their supervisors. What does the employee then do in such a case? Is it a similar situation? You are allowed to go to a higher authority or another authority that's away from your supervisor. Is that allowed?
Maybe I can come in.
Yes.
I think the supervisor also has a supervisor. I think that's the principle. Mm-hmm. So if a staff member is being constrained in any way by the immediate supervisor, the staff member has every right to push for an intervention on a higher level. It could be perhaps the supervisor of the immediate supervisor. And I believe the doors of our executive directors are wide open. If a staff member feels that in a manner my operations are being hindered deliberately or not deliberately by my immediate supervisor, you have a right to move to a next level and point out the issues that you need to point out. And then, obviously, if it comes to the attention of either the executive director or the other supervisor, there must be an investigation that needs to be carried, and action would have to be taken. It cannot continue like that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that one. Please, you are reminded as our viewers that you can actually comment, add your voice to the conversation on our social media platforms. On Facebook, you can find us at Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Republic of Namibia. That is on Facebook. On YouTube, our handle there is MICT Namibia. MICT Namibia, that's our handle on YouTube. Coming back to our panelists here in the studio, Ms. Yarman, what could be considered actions by a public servant that could bring the public service into disrepute? For example, just what could be the mild ones that can be dealt with internally? What are some that you prefer to hand over to the legal system? But most importantly, give us examples of what are those actions that could bring the public service into disrepute.
The public service staff rule on misconduct and disciplinary have divided the offences that a staff member may commit into three different categories. One of them is a major offence, a minor offence, and then the intermediate one. Okay. So major offences, and specifically offences that can bring the public service into disrepute, could be offences, for example, gross negligence in your work, that you don't deliver the necessary services and the public out there would just assume that the Namibian public service is not up to standard, and put the entire public service in dispute. Other offences, minor offences that can be caused, can be, for example, theft, the money that is transferred into wrong accounts, for example. Those are minor offences, and for those offences, employees can go through the disciplinary process, where it can start from verbal warnings, and then when we look into that, we will also look at the history of that employee, the time that he has been in employment. Also, we will look into factors of the cause of the offence, how big is this offence, and how can we take this offence into possible further action.
Okay, just to follow up on that one. Theft, minor offense?
No.
Or did I misunderstand?
Okay.
Does it fall under minor offenses?
No. When we talk about minor offences, it can be the disappropriation of funds, sometimes without your knowledge, and that will end up in theft. But definitely theft is a major dismissible offence.
Okay.
You are correct.
So the levels of theft, like the categories or the actions, the particular scenarios, what determines whether or not it falls, where it falls on the scales of all the three different scales.
Yeah.
Okay, of offences. Okay. Mr. Shikuthere, what is the purpose of an induction?
Thank you, Desire. I think when I look at the statement that you have provided to us, I think it's a very good one. And I also need to start off by saying all of us at one point have gone through an experience of coming into a new job.
Mm-hmm.
If not, you may probably have changed your jobs from time to time.
Mm.
And an induction, it's a very important intervention that needs to be encouraged, particularly in the public service. We have a very good framework that provides guidelines to ministries, offices, and agencies in terms of how they need to induct new employees that are appointed in the public service. Now, if you look at the guidelines, they are clearly indicating that it is very important for a staff member to be properly integrated into this new working environment.
Mm-hmm.
The person needs to be acquainted with the mandates of the particular ministries. The person needs to be acquainted with the type of service that the ministry is rendering in which he or she is employed. A person needs to also understand what is expected from me as an employee. Of course, you may have your job description as a departure point.
Yeah.
But sometimes it does not say all. So you need that interaction with your immediate supervisor so that you are taken through the ropes to better understand the intricacies of the operations of the ministry, what type of behaviors are expected from you as a new incomer into this environment. It literally provides an opportunity for the staff member also to appreciate the new environment. Okay. There are also some cases that we know of when an induction process has not gone very well, which sometimes result in people to just exit their employment in a very short space of time. So efforts need to be made by our ministries to ensure that we provide proper induction to our new staff members that we bring on board. But what I can share with you is if you look at the guidelines, it provides a number of phases in terms of how an induction process can be run.
Yeah.
It starts initially with a preliminary induction that needs to be conducted by the immediate supervisor.
Okay.
From the first day when the person reports, it is the duty of the immediate supervisor to start inducting the person,
Okay.
showing the person around and also explaining all these things that I have indicated. But there are also other formal and comprehensive interventions that are provided for in the policy framework.
Okay.
For example, when you have employed a number of staff members, what the ministry would do, they would gather the new staff members in one conference room. They invite the heads of various departments in the ministry, and these heads of departments would come and make presentations on what their departments are doing, their specific mandates. That process, it's very useful because it allows the person also to connect with the activities of other departments and also better understand and appreciate the fact that there is an interdependency between the operations of departments in ministries to an extent that as a staff member, if I neglect to do something in my department, it may probably have a direct implication on the operation of the other department. So that's why it is very important for this process that a staff member is taken through all the operations of the ministry. There are also, as you may know, NIPAM has developed some very good training programs. And one of the programs that they have on offer, it's an induction and orientation program, which is tailor-made for our public service. So when a staff member is on board, apart from the preliminary inductions, the other informal ways of inducting the staff member, a recommendation can also be made that a staff member be sent to NIPAM to attend this induction program, which would help, which will at the end of the day also be very helpful.
Okay, let me see if I understand that correctly. The program on offer at NIPAM, it's for individual staff members, regardless of which division, which directorate, whatever it is that they belong to, that they can attend this, and it is an induction with regards to the public service or the government as a whole.
As a whole, yes.
Okay.
You are correct.
But, sorry, but does it not mean that we are just shifting costly or in a costly manner the responsibilities of our HR?
No, I'm not saying there are no other interventions that happen on the ministerial level. We have what we call learning and development officers. Conducting these induction programs on the ministerial level, it is also a key responsibility for them. So it's a number of activities that happen, all aimed at providing a proper orientation.
My question still stands, as in we are constantly speaking about the government not having money. And now we've got a program that has been set that is offered at NIPAM, but or maybe I stand to be corrected, but if I am to sit and think of what it is that somebody could go and be trained, which would be a general training with regards to our government, where anybody, whether it's from the Ministry of Finance, whether it's the Ministry of Agriculture or Information, can attend this program. It's not tailor-made for specific ministries. It's tailor-made for the government as a whole. As far as I'm concerned, this would be then information that should be carried over to new employees by the Human Resource Department.
Remember that the induction process will start with a preliminary induction, and that will be done within the specific office, ministry and agency, so by the immediate supervisor, which will do a preliminary induction and ensure that the staff member really feel part of the team, understand the organization, etc. However, To formalize this process, we have also included the induction at NIPAM, where it's a more formal approach and it is generic to the public service staff rules, very specific to each and every staff rule that the supervisor might not have the specific detail of. And also the supervisors are at the end of the day responsible to ensure that this person are indeed inducted and deliver the services on an acceptable level of performance.
Okay. Maybe it would assist us if you could give us examples of some of the elements of this program that is on offer at NIPAM. Mr. Shikuthere?
Unfortunately, not at this point in time,
Okay.
but those modules are available and they are obtainable from the NIPAM head office.
Okay.
I cannot go into the details now
Yeah.
because I may probably not do justice to your question.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I think for the sake of clarity, same as I myself would be doing the same, I believe NIPAM would most likely have it on their website. And I think as public servants, it would also just do justice to our operations. If we could take a look at what this program has entailed and what it does actually offer, and maybe it would give me clarity on the question that I have, because I'm just thinking to myself, generic induction on government, that would be things like your code of conduct, is it your medical aid scheme, your labor laws around it? You see where I get stuck now, but it's okay. We carry on for the sake of time, and I will definitely implore you, as I myself will be doing it, to just educate ourselves on that particular platform. It might actually do us a little bit of good as well. Now, as we say, public service, public servants, this is a general topic that affects every single person because government affects everybody and the state is everybody. We took to the streets to hear the voices and comments of your everyday Namibian, and this is what they had to say.
Thank you very much for the question. Code of conduct. These are principles and rules and regulations set up by an organization to ensure that they guide the behaviors of their staff members and also to ensure that they are in line with their work schedules, work duties. It's also giving a platform for you to also give an opportunity for staff members to be protected as well, and also for the organization to be protected. So code of conduct is a very essential component of an organization to have, because without it, then meaning that the organization will be in disarray, or it will be having a lot of problems. So that's why a code of conduct is there to govern the behaviors and the standard and the ethic of every employee-employer relation as well.
Okay, in my opinion, the code of conduct, it guides me on how should I work and act while I'm performing the duty at the workplace. I need to laws and rules and regulations that are set up by the public service. And it's very important for each and staff member or the employee to know the code of conduct and to be inducted, so that they cannot be like not feel welcomed. They need to be like happy at their new place. I was inducted by the colleagues from Human Resources Department, that they introduced me to the people that I'm going to work with, especially the HR department, finance sections, and auxiliary services. When I started here, my direct supervisor was on study leave, and I was introduced to the acting deputy director, and I have been also meet management staff member within the ministry. Since I started, I have been attending the management meeting where I need to provide feedback related to the matter for auxiliary services.
I received the induction and it was done quite well because I remember the first day I started, it was a Monday, whereby one of the HR staff introduced me to my seniors. And the first thing my senior said, they started by congratulating me for being the best candidate. And then after that, they welcomed me, and not only to the finance section, they welcomed me to the entire ministry, so I felt welcomed. And then the third thing that they did, they also talked about the general view of my task as an accountant. They also talked about the little challenges that the finance section is facing, of which also gave me a clue.
The induction give me the guidelines. It assists me on how to do my duties, especially when you know the person that if you need an information regarding the HR matter, you know where you are going to get that information. At the regional level, I know all the people that's involving in the regional level. If I have to send even a certain circular, or I need to get information from the region, I know where to call and to whom must I talk to. It's made me to feel warmly welcome to the MICT families.
The induction really helped me very well because it was through induction, or it made my day-to-day works easier. It also smoothened the process of working because I remember I knew who to engage in case if I need assistance. It also helps me who should I team up in case I have a discussion or work related which I need to be discussed. The induction process helps me to feel welcomed, and also makes me, or it also kind of a motivation, and it also helped me to increase my self-confidence at workplace.
It is quite warming to actually hear the views and the feelings of what our people out there do know, number one, and number two, how they actually feel about some of these different elements that we are discussing today. Ms. Yarman, I had a question with regards to, first of all, the world is evolving, we are moving, and with it comes your usage of technology. Now, with regards to integrity and being held accountable, transparency, and all these things, we wanted to find out, are public servants actually held accountable on what they post on their social media platforms by the employer obviously being government?
I think we are all aware that social media is very open, and it's difficult to track what is happening on social media. So if there is something that has been picked up, which might not always be the case, because staff members might post things and it might not be picked up that this is a public servant, but indeed if it's picked up that this staff member has been involved in a specific transgression, for example, posted something on social media that puts the public service in a bad light, it will definitely be taken up. However, it's not always possible to track these statements that are made on social media.
But how do we determine, how do we draw the line between bringing the public service into disrepute and one's right to air their view on social media or whatever platform that they choose, like freedom of speech? Where do we draw the line?
Yes, freedom of speech is there, and it is in our constitution. However, as public servants, we are obligated to act ethically on a day-to-day basis, whether it's on social media, whether it's just on a regular chat that you having on the street. You need to make sure that you are indeed putting the public service in the best possible picture as might be possible at that stage. Remember that it is your employer, and putting your employer into a bad light might have its consequences at the end of the day.
Staying with that, but what if there's a particular action that my employer wants to take? My employer is the state and I am the state on both ends. So would it be me bringing the public service into disrepute if I air my disagreement with regards to a particular action that my employer wants to take? That I feel that is an injustice to not just myself as an employee, but also an injustice as a Namibian.
I think you are slightly putting it different now. It might be that the employer is of the opinion that there's nothing wrong with saying this. This is something that is the truth. So then it's completely different than a person purposefully acting in a wrongful manner. If, however, there's something that you have picked up and, for example, the example that you have related to, that it's something that your supervisor is doing, you are not in agreement, you really see it's unethical. The right way to do it is to report it through the proper channels, then to go into social media and report it out there, or to go to any other media out there, whether it's the radio or the TV, etc. The proper manner to deal with that one is to, if it's your supervisor, the right process is then to submit a grievance up to a higher level with regard to the activities that supervisor are performing.
Okay. Now, if I am, for example, I'm trying to see at how different things that take place on social media. And I think this, as I always say, this is our platform that we educate and educate not just ourselves here, but also people out there on, somebody might be, involved in an action that they thought, oh, well, it's an okay something, but at the end of the day might be something that's actually quite wrong. And this brings me to the question where, can I be held, I don't know, it's not accountable per se, but can I be seen as bringing the public service into disrepute based on the personal activities of my life?
I think on the HR perspective, ignorance has never been an excuse. The fact that you are ignoring specific rules that has been put in place, telling you that you are allowed to do this and that, and not deviate from that. So if you don't follow the public service staff rules that has been put in place, the code of conduct telling you how to act, and you decide to deviate from that, you can and will be charged of an offense.
Okay. Mr. Shikuthere, we have not forgotten about you. What is probation and how long does it last?
Thank you, Desire. I think probation is a common practice that you would find in any employment setup. It has a particular purpose. Mm-hmm. When you have taken the person through the normal interviewing process, and as an employer you have now made an offer, of course the person would have met all your conditions that you have set, but there is another element that you also need to then start doing, and that is to test the suitability of this particular person that you have brought on board, assessing whether you have matched this person with a correct job, assessing whether the person that you brought on board is able to meet the targets that you have set because the employment has now started.
Yeah.
You need to assess the quality of the work of this staff member. Now, that process, it's very important because at the end of the day, it helps the executive director to make an informed decision whether the appointment can be now confirmed and become a permanent employment.
Okay.
So in terms of the period, the maximum period for serving a probation in the public service is 12 months. But there are provisions, of course, for a person to serve a shorter period of probation,
Okay.
depending on the particular employment history that you have.
Okay.
It could be that maybe where I'm coming from, I have been operating on a similar level, and that would not necessarily may require me to undergo through a whole period of 12 months probation.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
So
think
that maybe could work in. Does that then maybe work in a situation where the person was transferred
transferred
from one
from one
OMA
job
to the
category
other,
to another,
but carrying out the same duty,
carrying
same
out
position?
similar duties, positions that have similar duties.
Okay.
Yeah, some transfers, some promotions, you completely go into a different new environment,
Yeah.
and then the purpose of a reduced probation would not work for you.
Okay.
Yeah, if there are similarities between what you have been doing from where you are coming from and what you are not doing, it justifies a request for a person to serve a shorter probation period.
Okay.
Yes.
Does this apply to management cadre?
It applies to management cadre as well.
Okay.
Everyone who is appointed in the public service needs to undergo through a probation period.
Okay.
Yes.
And if the supervisor is not satisfied by the end of the assessment period, what are the steps that are followed? Like what happens to that employee? Do they then get fired, and are they allowed to appeal? What is each party allowed to do?
Yes, before I come there, I need to perhaps also share with you that in this 12 months period, there are certain activities that need to happen. We have what we call progress reports.
Yeah.
That record the progress and the performance of the person on probation on a quarterly basis. So the guidance that we give to ministries is the outcome at the end of your 12 months
Yeah.
should not come as a surprise to the person on probation.
Okay.
So meaning in this 12 months period, there should be constant dialogue.
Okay.
There should be constant discussions
Is it between
between the supervisor and the
employee?
person on probation,
Okay.
so that from the word go, if there are shortcomings that are identified, so that they are addressed while it is early.
Okay.
You know, there are some instances where people wait until the end of the 12 months, and it's only then that these shortcomings are now identified and communicated to the person on probation, which is not supposed to be the case.
Okay.
So, having given you that background, when the 12 months comes to an end, the supervisor actually has two options. Mind you, I'm saying there was a dialogue. There was an exchange of information in terms of the performance, in terms of the suitability of this individual. So everyone is supposed to know what are the shortcomings, what is it that I did not do that my supervisor wanted me to do. So when the period comes to an end, if there is a very clear conviction from the side of the supervisor, the supervisor can then make a recommendation that I feel, given maybe an additional period, there is a chance for the shortcomings that were identified to be improved.
Okay.
So in that case, the supervisor can then make a recommendation that the probation period be extended with a few months,
Okay.
in order to give a chance to the staff member on probation, maybe to see whether there is a possibility for the person to catch up.
Okay.
Now, the other option, which is normally the last resort, is when all these things were done,
Okay.
and maybe by the end of the 12 months, the supervisor does not see any prospect of an improvement, then in that case, the supervisor can recommend that the appointment on probation be terminated.
Okay.
Yes. Now, maybe also just to move to your other question of whether there is a possibility of an appeal. Of course, if you look at the current provision in the Public Service Act,
Yeah.
it does not provide for an appeal procedure after the termination of a probation, but there are other instruments that support what the Public Service Act provides.
Okay.
For example, these instruments that we call our public service staff rules. So if you go to them, we recognized that there is a need for a staff member to be given an opportunity to appeal. Although the Act is silent, there are internal arrangements that we have put in place as an institution. So the person, when he or she feels the termination of the probation was not probably okay, can then appeal to the Public Service Commission, who can then go into the issue, request some records from the ministry, and then make a specific recommendation to the Prime Minister.
Okay.
Yes.
In the interest of time, I would have actually loved to ask a few follow-up questions on that. But in the interest of time, let us move on to the topic or the element of leave. What is leave? What are the types of leave that we do have in the public service? What are the processes and rules attached to these types of leave?
Thank you, Desire. Leave generally needs to be understood as a period that a staff member needs to apply for in order to be absent from work for reasons that are normally variable. But if you allow me to take you through some of the types of leave, you would probably appreciate why I'm saying the reasons are normally variable.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me talk to the first type of leave that we have, which is the vacation leave. It is a common one. It is well known. In the public service, there is an entitlement of 25 days per annum. And maybe just to touch on few conditions, the vacation leave, we also call it annual leave. And if you look at where it comes from, annual leave is prescribed in the labor law. There are already certain conditions that are linked to the granting of annual leave. And I think the principle is very clear. Every employer must make sure that an employee takes annual leave after every 12 months.
Okay.
And that is to take a period of rest. You cannot allow someone to work for a couple of years without that rest period. It's against the provisions of the labor law.
Okay.
Maybe just to run, but we have most different staff members in the public service. The 25 is for normal staff members like me and you.
Okay.
Staff members that work at educational institutions, their entitlements are a little bit lesser. For teachers, they only qualify for 8 days a year. And then for other staff members that work at our educational institutions, they qualify for 10 days per annum. The other type of leave, it's sick leave, which is also known, and it is granted to cover for the absence of a staff member owing to illness. Maybe just to run you through the numbers of entitlements in terms of days. 132 days with full pay, 132 days with half pay over a 3-year cycle.
132
132 days
of sick leave.
of sick leave.
Okay, so it's not an open-ended thing.
It's not an open-ended. When you exhaust the 132 days, you immediately switch to another period of 132 days, but with half pay. If you exhaust the 132 days with half pay, you switch to unpaid leave.
Wow. And the unpaid leave, does that have an end period?
Those periods are normally at the discretion of the executive director.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other type of leave that we have is compassionate leave. I think it's also known.
Yeah.
It's a maximum of 10 days per annum, and it is to cover your absence from work when you need to probably attend to deaths in the family, and also for illness in the family.
Oh, illness as well.
In the family, of course. The
Okay.
other illness is for the staff member himself
Yes.
or herself, but this one is for illness in the family.
Okay.
Yes.
Can that be extended on the basis of, let's say, for example, my husband, my daughter, my child is sick, and unfortunately these 10 days come and they go, and I still need to assist. I don't have, let's say, relatives to assist me to take over the care of this person. Can I then be allowed to extend them?
You only have a maximum of 10 days per annum. Once you exhaust them, if you need any absence from your work, you would then need to probably make use of your normal vacation leave days.
What if I don't have vacation leave days left?
It's very unfortunate. These entitlements are provided as such.
Okay.
If we don't want, I don't want to encourage people to take unpaid leave, but if you have exhausted if you don't have days at all, then the only option that is left for you is to take unpaid leave
Okay.
if you want to attend to your private matters.
Okay.
Yes. The other type of leave, quickly, is the maternity leave that we also apply strictly in terms of the provisions of the labor law. It is, of course, unpaid, since that's what the labor law prescribes.
Okay.
4 weeks before confinement, 8 weeks after confinement. And then we have also what we call study leave. Every staff member who is permanently employed qualifies for 12 days per annum that can be used for study purposes. And there are two types of study leave. The one is the 50-50 basis,
Okay.
which works like if I have the 12-day study leave that I'm referring to can be accumulated. Meaning, if you don't use them in one particular year, they go over to the next year.
Okay.
So over the years, you build up a number of days. And if you want to study, you take those days. If you have vacation leave credit days, you put them together. If you put them together and they give you a total of 100 days, the employer gives you another 100 days
Okay.
a special leave. If you put them together, it becomes 200.
Okay.
You-
Mr. Shikuthere, I'm sorry here.
Yes.
I need to cut you off. There is a particular aspect. We have run out of time.
Yes.
There's something very important. For annual leave, what leeway do I have? How do I apply for it? When do I apply for it? What if my work is constraining me and keeping me from applying it in a particular time frame? What do I do then?
Yes, thank you, Desire. I think if you go back to the Labour Act, Section 23, it is very clear that every employee must be given annual leave,
Yes.
and it also empowers the employer to decide when should this annual leave be taken, and that is perhaps done in the spirit of trying to protect the operational needs of an employer. In as much as we are saying it's an entitlement, it's a right that a person has to take annual leave, but the employer can, once an application is received, an employer can also make alternative arrangements with a staff member to say, I understand that you now need to take your annual leave, but we have certain operational issues that need to be in place.
Yeah.
Can we perhaps make an alternative arrangement instead of you going end of this month? Maybe we agree that you go at another period.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, with that said, we have come to the end of our show. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you very much for being part of our show this afternoon. We are also very grateful to the panelists that availed themselves to be with us this afternoon. Thank you very much. And hopefully, we can knock on your doors again. From myself, Shianwa Desire Kahiha, and my production team, goodbye.